War begins before anyone even realizes it. Machiavelli would say that the moment a man learns without asking permission, he awakens a kind of silent hostility that has existed for centuries. The elite do not fear the ignorant, they fear the independent. The self-taught man is born outside the ritual, without blessings, without tutors, without the liturgy that legitimizes power. He emerges raw, unpredictable, driven by necessity and curiosity, two forces that no ruler can tame. And this raises the first uncomfortable question: how to control someone who owes nothing to anyone. Machiavelli would see in this man a structural, not a moral threat, because whoever does not submit to the rules written by those in power reveals, effortlessly, that perhaps these rules were never so indispensable after all. The simple act of thinking for oneself dismantles the fiction of hierarchy, and it is precisely this point, the courage to act without authorization, that ignites fear in those who have built castles in the air. Machiavelli would observe the gatekeepers with the same coldness with which he studied the nobles of Florence, men who defend their own status more than the order they claim to protect. And this mechanism still lives today, hidden in the most common routines. You must have seen it happen. As soon as someone learns something on their own, photography, programming, investments, carpentry, suddenly, the interrogation begins. Where did you study? Who authorized you? What is your certificate? The questions never seek to understand real ability. They seek to identify whether you went through the ritual that legitimizes knowledge. It's curious how, even in informal conversations, this invisible guardian emerges, trying to remind you that there is a cue, a door, a password. Sometimes this happens between friends, work colleagues, family members. A casual phrase, a suspicious look, irony disguised as advice. Small signs that the system still speaks through people, even when they don't realize it. Machiavelli would call this an instinctive defense of symbolic power, because an efficient, self-taught individual is in itself an affront to the bureaucratic edifice that sustains the authority of many people. The simple fact that someone crosses the gate without touching the doorknob makes the guardian insecure, and their insecurity transforms into new rules, demands, questions, obstacles. You can see this at work when a colleague tries to disqualify an idea because it doesn't come from the right person. You can notice it in academia, when merit depends more on the supervisor's signature than on the quality of the argument. You can even see it in creative circles, when someone quickly stands out and everyone wants to know what forbidden shortcut they used to get there. This is where the mystery that Machiavelli would love to analyze arises. Why do people trust rituals so much and results so little? Perhaps because rituals create a sense of control. If everyone goes through the same doors, no one feels threatened. But when a man appears who simply scales the wall, the entire system enters a silent crisis. He shouldn't be there, and yet he is. And if he succeeded, others can too. It is at this moment that the guardians realize the truth they fear most. The door was never as necessary as they made it seem. And when this realization begins to spread, the castle that seemed solid reveals its cracks. Machiavelli always saw two types of threat: the ambitious individual who rises within the system, and the talented one who emerges outside of it. And, for him, the latter was always the most dangerous. The self-taught individual who appears without pedigree, without patrons, and without favors does not follow the expected script. He was not molded to obey, nor trained to ask permission. He emerges as a strange force, an element that should not exist in that space, but is there due to competence, persistence, and instinct. He possesses a virtue that is not acquired in brightly lit rooms, but rather in the harshness of real life, and this always arouses unease in those in command. The elite knows it can negotiate with the ambitious insider. It can offer rewards, positions, titles, crumbs of power. But the man who came from outside and rose through his own merit doesn't feel the same dependence. He doesn't play the debt game. That's why Machiavelli describes him as someone who cannot be bought with gifts or honors, because his strength comes from within, not from a system that sheltered him. This type of individual doesn't fear discomfort, because discomfort was his first teacher. If he got where he is, it's because he learned to survive without support. And this raises the first uncomfortable question: how do you control someone who doesn't need you? Contrary to what many imagine, the self-taught individual does not seek destruction. They seek movement, and this movement generates friction. Machiavelli would say that their presence exposes a fragility that the powerful avoid admitting. When someone climbs without a ladder, they prove that the ladder is dispensable. This silent realization corrodes the legitimacy of those who built their authority solely on symbols. The self-taught individual reveals that the castle has false doors, distracted guards, and walls less solid than they seem. They demonstrate unintentionally that life exists outside the established order, and this is the kind of truth that reopens old conflicts. And here another inevitable question arises. Why does the outsider bother people so much, even when they're not trying to challenge anyone? Perhaps because, in every gesture, he reminds the system that there is a world that functions without authorization. Machiavelli described this as the force of virtù, that inner energy that creates opportunity where others only see obstacles. The self-taught person learns quickly, adapts quickly, and changes quickly. He was trained by necessity, not by comfort. This difference means that his mistakes produce intelligence, and his successes produce fear. For a ruler, nothing is more alarming than a man who grows without depending on the structure that sustains the power of others. And then comes the final question, one that Machiavelli would surely throw like a blade. If a single individual can prosper without the system, what prevents many from doing the same? It is this doubt that transforms the self-taught individual, in the eyes of the powerful, into the most serious type of threat, not because they seek to dominate, but because they prove, through their very existence, that dominance was never total. Machiavelli would say that the world punishes those who deviate from the script, and this appears in the most unexpected situations. You've probably seen someone who learned programming on their own, get rejected in an interview because they lacked a diploma, even though they solved problems in minutes that even trained engineers couldn't explain. Or the self-taught carpenter who built furniture better than certified professionals, and still heard that it wasn't official. There are almost absurd cases, like the mechanic who learned electronics by watching old videos, and ended up being called to fix machines that even specialized technicians didn't know how to operate. These episodes reveal something unsettling. When competence appears where it shouldn't, many try to erase the merit, instead of recognizing it. Machiavelli would call this an instinctive reflex of self-preservation. The system doesn't fear the self-taught person's mistakes, it fears their success. Because each success challenges the ritual, dismantles the hierarchy, and exposes the fragility of those who have always needed authorization to exist. Machiavelli would say that there is a force that no power can buy, the ability to see what others do not see, and that is precisely what makes the self-taught individual such an unsettling figure. They see patterns that weren't in the manual, find solutions that weren't in the protocol, and advance down paths that no one dared to test. Often this force appears in the most unlikely moments, like when an employee considered ordinary saves an entire project because they noticed on their own a flaw that experienced engineers ignored, or when an entrepreneur without a college degree instinctively finds the loophole that becomes the business of the year. These episodes create a kind of silent tension. If someone from the outside surpasses those on the inside, what happens to the credibility of the structure? It is at this point that Machiavelli would reveal the uncomfortable truth. The elite always fear the unpredictable, and the self-taught person is unpredictable because their knowledge does not follow official paths. It is born from attempts, errors, failures, and discoveries that cannot be measured in certificates. They change quickly, learn quickly, react quickly. In a system built to reward obedience, this autonomy seems almost subversive. The gatekeeper despairs because he doesn't know what the next move will be of someone who has never needed to ask permission. But it is precisely when everything seems stable that the upheaval occurs. An extraordinary success by the self-taught individual, an innovative project, an accurate diagnosis, a solution that no one expected, causes the system to falter. Suddenly, it becomes clear that those trained to repeat cannot compete with those trained by necessity. And this realization creates a new, almost existential fear. If such a person continues to grow, who can stop him? This is the question Machiavelli would leave hanging in the air, preparing the ground for the inevitable conclusion. Machiavelli would say that when the world enters a crisis, masks fall, and only those who truly know how to act remain standing. At that moment, titles lose their power, positions become vacant, and the remaining question is simple. Who can solve the problem now? That's where the self-taught person stands out, not because of challenge, but because of habit. They have always lived in unstable terrain where everything changes quickly, where mistakes teach more than any lesson, and where necessity is worth more than any diploma. Therefore, when reality hits hard, they don't freeze, they act. And this practical, direct, and almost instinctive ability is the virtue that makes the difference between those who wait for permission and those who create their own way out. But Machiavelli also warned that this strength only becomes real when you decide to use it to your advantage. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking approval from the very guardians who try to limit your growth. It's easy to wait for the right moment, the perfect conditions, the ideal recognition, but none of that ever comes. The only real path is to begin, to learn however you can, to test however you can, to move forward even when no one believes in you. The independence you build today is the weapon that no one can take from you tomorrow. And it doesn't matter what field you're in. There's always room for those who can think clearly, act courageously, and learn without fear. That's what makes the self-taught person such a powerful figure. They didn't conquer the system. They simply learned to live without depending on it. If you apply this in practice with consistency and humility, you will discover something that Machiavelli considered essential. True power does not come from external recognition, but from your ability to act when others retreat. Every book you read on your own, every skill you learn in silence, every project you start without waiting for approval makes you less vulnerable and more capable of deciding your own destiny. And when you reach that point, no one can take away what you have built with your own hands. That is the moment when you cease to be a piece in the game and become someone capable of moving the board. If this video made you think, please like it, share it in the comments, even if you only want to write one word or comment anonymously, and subscribe to the channel to continue learning and evolving with us. Your support makes all the difference in helping this message reach more people and allowing us to create increasingly profound and transformative content.